When it came down to the Nazis and their military technology, you can't deny that they were next level. They made mortars the size of blue whales that shot shells as big as rhinos, built an artillery cannon so big and powerful that the Nazis broke it down themselves as they were afraid the Soviets would capture and use it against them. And they even worked on a prototype death ray, a ray weapon that could kill the engine of an airplane and its pilot with one simple click. The Nazis were spearheading massive and ungodly new means of warfare. And among those many plans of mass destruction was one that, luckily, never saw the light of day. At least, not by this fedora-wearing fella. Meet the hero of its time, or the main villain, who failed. Historically Facts, Part 4. It is early 1939, and Poland is still Poland. A German scientist named Otto Frisch and his colleague found out by pure chance that when you shoot neutrons at uranium, it splits into two equally lighter elements. But more interestingly, it also blowed out a strong burst of kinetic energy, which another Otto with another colleague figured out was a completely undiscovered process. They ended up calling the process fission. But they soon figured out another layer to this process. Along with kinetic energy that splurged out from the atom, there was another thing that got shot out. Neutrons. The same thing that started this entire process. Now, guess what happens if one of those neutrons that gets blown away hits another uranium atom? Exactly the same thing. Now imagine that this is all happening in a controlled environment. The atomic bomb. Now, this is all just on paper, and such a bomb wasn't actually a thing. Though one top scientist immediately knew the danger of this just discovered process. His name was Albert Einstein. He and many other top scientists who worried about the rising fascism in Europe fled Germany the earlier years and settled for America, where they continued to worry about their home country's fate. And when Einstein heard the news of this newly discovered process, he immediately sent a letter to the president in office, Franklin D. Roosevelt, about the potential unknown danger of nuclear weapons. This brings us to Heisenberg. No, not this one. The one he named himself after. Werner Heisenberg. Werner was somewhat of a genius himself. At age 23, he wrote groundbreaking papers. Age 25, he formulated this, which I'm not even sure what it means. And at age 31, he received a Nobel Prize for, and I quote, for the creation of quantum mechanics. That sounds fancy, doesn't it? We will come back to Heisenberg in a bit, because it's time for Blitzkrieg. Germany, the Slovak Republic, and the Soviet Union all attacked Poland at the same time, leaving the massively outnumbered Polish in an extremely one-sided war with no support whatsoever. Followed with the country being tarnished forever by all 6 of Nazi Germany's extermination camps, where millions of people ended up, well, you know how it ended. The war had started, innocent lives were being taken, and Hitler was rapidly taking over parts of Europe and Africa. The same day the war started, the Nazis set up the Uran project, a nuclear weapons research program with the intentions to harness the power of fission to overpower their enemies. And why is because of Heisenberg. Just as Einstein wrote about the dangers of nuclear weapons to the president, so did Heisenberg to the German government. And this sparked the Nazis' interest. The first meeting of the Uran project, Heisenberg for some reason wasn't invited, but he was at the second a month later, where top physicists discussed the potential of a nuclear bomb. A bomb so powerful, it could wipe down entire cities within a blink of an eye. The physicists unanimously agreed that creating such a bomb would take roughly 5 years, meaning it would have been finished no later than 1944, in the midst of the Second World War, a year before the Americans exploded their prototype. Yeah, we are still in 1939, and the Nazis were already looking into the possibility of a nuclear bomb, 2 years before Oppenheimer even entered the atomic scene. So why did the Nazis fail, even though they were 3 years ahead of the Americans? This is where we can either call Heisenberg a hero or a failed villain. Heisenberg didn't become the head of the research program till the same year that Oppenheimer rose up. Why did the Nazis not use Heisenberg's brilliance before the Americans started the Manhattan Project? Well, it's because Heisenberg didn't push for nuclear weapons as hard as he could have. He only reported the findings of the second meeting to the Führer 2 weeks after it happened, where he claimed he casually proposed the idea because he once again claimed he didn't want to put thousands of personnel on a project that might ultimately fail, resulting in extremely disagreeable consequences. Testimonials like these make it very hard to find out what Heisenberg actually stood for. Did he really have no faith in the project? Or did he not want to bear the sins that Oppenheimer ended up bearing himself? Nonetheless, his plan worked. The project was halted till 1942, but shortly after he took the role of the head of the nuclear research program. Once again, why? Is it because he wanted to hinder the progress which he could only do in the top position? Or was it because he felt like he could finally bring the Nazis to victory only if he led the group? Either way, the playing field between Oppenheimer and Heisenberg was effectively evened. Both started the same year at roughly the same position, respectively in their countries. Yet, luckily, the Americans came out victorious. Did our hero hinder the progress while Oppenheimer thrived? Or was it because of the anti-Semitism which caused all the top Jewish scientists to flee the country, meaning less available personnel, and the fact that the tide in the war had turned? Which meant not all the resources he needed could have been assigned to his Uran project? Question mark. Historians all around the world aren't 100% sure themselves. So unfortunately, we can't give you a final answer if he's in heaven or in hell. But we can give you facts. And here's a fun fact. In 1944, Heisenberg was invited to meet Adolf Hitler in person. And not even a year later, Hitler killed himself. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but that is awfully suspicious. In the end, the Nazis and Heisenberg did make a prototype of a nuclear reactor. But they didn't even get close to what the Americans and Oppenheimer achieved in as little as 3 years. Heisenberg ended up being captured by the Allies, but just like the other scientists, he was shortly after released and sent back to his country, where he played a key role in getting Germany nuclear energy. This is the bizarre story of the hero or villain of the Second World War.